What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network for the top 20 decks in the Astral Radiance standard format of the Pokemon trading card game as of June 2022, Week 1. If you didn't already watch yesterday's top 10 decks video for Week 1, be sure to check that out before watching the rest of this video, because today we'll be looking at decks number 11 through 20. These are kind of the decks that are waiting in the background, seeing if they can prove themselves to become a top 10 deck and knock some of the others out of the upper echelon of decks in our current standard format. And it's early days in the Astral Radiance format. We haven't even had official events yet with these brand new cards, so leave it down below. Am I missing decks? Am I misranking some of these archetypes? Let me know what you think. And before we get into this, shout out to my sponsors, PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code CELIO for 5% off. Also shop at CardTrooperGames.com. That's where I pre-order all of my sealed products, so like my Astral Radiance booster boxes, and I'll be pre-ordering the Pokemon Go set. You can do that too and use code CELIO for 5% off. If you're shopping for Dragon Shield sleeves at Dragon Shield's website, you can use that affiliate link in my description. Also check out the Beast Coast Pokemon YouTube channel. It is a collaborative Pokemon YouTube channel that I'm a part of, and we create some great content for the trading card game, the video game, Pokemon Unite, and just general Pokemon content. And then also share your deck lists over at PokemonCard.io. They have a great deck list creator. They also have a price estimator built in. You can also test your opening hands with the deck builder, and you can share your lists with the community and view everyone else's lists there as well. One last thing, be sure to subscribe to this channel for daily Pokemon TCG content. Leave a like and a comment, and now let's get into the top 20 decks. Week 1 Astral Radiance. Starting off with number 11, we'll be looking at Arceus Duraludon. So Arceus Duraludon was a contender in the Brilliant Stars format. I think with some decks that are coming out like Palkia Vstar that is very good, that don't rely on special energies, Duraludon VMAX is going to have a little bit of a tougher time in the meta with decks like that around. This is a recently played Arceus Duraludon VMAX list going very heavy on those Averys, no doubt to combat the Palkia V-Star's damage output, which relies on bench size. And Arceus Duraludon VMAX is pretty good at keeping a small bench, so maybe it can do just fine in this new metagame with Palkia V-Star from the Astral Radiance set, even though this new Tier 1 deck doesn't use special energies. Duraludon VMAX's Skyscraper ability will not be hurting Palkia V-Star. I'm sure there's a plethora of other decks that will be hurt by it, but Duraludon VMAX with its high HP, ability to keep a small bench with this kind of deck, and also the Averys to hurt the opponent's bench size, might just be fine against Palkia V-Star. Next, we have Rapidstrike Inteleon VMAX. This is another deck that wants to tank hits, take hits and then heal it, take a hit and then heal it. Kind of similar to Arceus Duraludon, but doesn't have that walling capability like Duraludon VMAX has with its ability. But this is what a Rapidstrike Inteleon VMAX deck is typically going to look like. You want to have your big charm on there with 350 HP on the Rapidstrike Inteleon VMAX, and then the Gmax Spiral does 140 each turn, and you return the energy to your hand, and then you Cheryl and reattach, and so on and so on. And you just try to win a war of attrition versus your opponent. Again, this deck is being hurt by Palkia coming into the format, but not by Palkia itself. It's actually because this shares a type weakness with Palkia. They're both weak to lightning type attackers. And I think we'll see Raikou V and Zeraora from Vivid Voltage being teched into decks along with Lightning Energy to combat Palkia, and those will also hit Inteleon VMAX for collateral damage, which is what's keeping me from putting Inteleon in the top 10 right now. Next is Hassuing Samurott Vstar. Now, this one's interesting because it is definitely a great card on its own, Hassuing Samurott Vstar. But how do we build the deck? We haven't seen players showing off any really placements with the deck so far online or in the handful of real-life events that have been going on with early Astral Radiance Legal. But here we have a toolbox kind of deck piloted in an online event by username Sino. Not sure if this will end up being the way to build Hassuing and Samurott V-Star, and maybe players are just keeping the secrets of Hassuing and Samurott V-Star under wraps until Milwaukee Regionals and NAIC coming up later this month. That's probably what's going on here because I think it's such a great deck. I'm sorry, I think it's such a great card, Hisuian Samurai. It can do 220 for 2 energy, and then Mooncleave Star places 4 damage counters. It has a lot going for it other than needing exactly 2 dark energy, which can be a little awkward, meaning it's hard to play other energies in the deck and no capture energies probably. But I think the card is so good that it has to come out with some kind of deck built around it that ends up being good. But it's in this weird spot where we don't really know what a deck list should look like for it. So that's why it's down here in the top 20, but I can definitely see in a few weeks it being a top 10 deck. Next is going to be Zoroark Wormadam, or you could also call it Zoroark Stage 1s, depending on how heavily influential the Wormadam part of the deck is. But here's a list I found that somebody played online recently in Astral Radiance format, also using the Baby Molt and a Clara and the 4 basic Dark Energy, which is a kind of the deck building strategy for this deck that I think we saw Omnipoke use back last set when they were trying out Zoroark Stage 1s with the Galarian Moltres Clara Basic Dark. But the new addition here would be the Mighty Yenna, and then also the Weird Ear and the Trekking Shoes. I think this deck could also definitely use a super effective Glasses. But the Mighty Yenna is a really great counter to Mew, so I don't think you necessarily need the Galarian Moltres in there anymore. Grant is also an option if you want to go heavier into the Wormadam and play maybe 2 fighting type Wormadams and maybe even another fighting type attacker. Golisopod's good. It does a lot of damage if they have a lot of V Pokemon on the board, but it also hits Darkrai V-Star and Samurott V-Star for weakness if those start seeing play. No lightning type attackers to hit into Palkia, so you will just be trying to knock them out without using type to your advantage and just getting a lot of Pokemon in the discard with Wormadam and getting your knockouts that way. Next is Jolteon VMAX. So I don't think Jolteon VMAX is actually that good, but on paper it seems like it should be good because it's lightning type, which means it hits Palkia V-Star for weakness. But I think so many decks are playing Manaphy now because they're afraid of Radiant Greninja. If they're not afraid of other bench damage decks like Jolteon and Rapidstrike Urshifu. And I think this deck is just so frail that even Palkia could beat it. But Sutherland did get a recent good online placement with it in a smaller event. I'll play Limitless. I think other than Sutherland, I've seen a couple other people playing it as well online. I don't think this deck will translate into getting finishes in real life. I'm ready to be proven wrong. I just don't think the deck is very good anymore. Next at number 16 is Rapidstrike Malamar, another deck that I just don't think is that good anymore. It's hurt by wanting to play Manaphy, or if you don't play Manaphy, you get your board destroyed by Radiant Greninja, and then if not Radiant Greninja, potentially Urshifu, or maybe even the Jolteon VMAXs that are running around. Speaking of Jolteon, not only do you have to worry about the VMAX, but also the Memory Capsule Jolteon that turns off water abilities, turns off most of your deck here. The Shady Dealings, the quick shooting, the Rapid Strike Search. I don't think this deck is poised to do well. It also dislikes having a small bench, and if people are countering Palkia with Avery and Collapse Stadium, those cards are also hitting Malamar for collateral damage, so I'm not expecting this deck to be a front runner in the Astral Radiance metagame. Next at number 17 is Darkrai V-Star, and this is another one. How do we build the deck? I think it's much easier to build than Hisuian Samurott V-Star, but we still haven't seen a successful skeleton for the deck. And this is one that was piloted in an online event by FDizzle12, and I think this is kind of close. It's at least the closest thing I've found anybody publish to what I think the deck should probably end up looking like. Just trying to pile a bunch of energy onto the board with Dark Patch, both of the Moltres, drawing cards with Crobat V, getting a couple energy back with Training Core, and Training Core probably just is the best stadium bump to get rid of Path to the Peak for this deck, because you can also get back an energy. Maybe Temple of Sinnoh could also be a consideration for this deck's stadium of choice. The trekking shoes definitely are good for an aggro kind of deck like this, to get cards into the discard and draw cards that you need. But we'll have to see if aggression is enough. This deck seems very, very linear. You know, you're just trying to hit the active for as much damage as you can. Sometimes you'll play a boss's orders, but you don't really have card search like an Inteleon deck has. You don't have any kind of lock like the Jolteon memory capsule decks have. You don't have bench damage. It's very, very just straightforward, but if it could do enough damage fast enough, that straightforwardness will be fine. We'll just have to see how this deck progresses through the metagame. Next is going to be Durant. So Durant is seeing some play early on, and you know, we're in that phase where we're going to see which decks stay and which decks go, and which decks never leave the top 20 video to go to the top 10 video. I don't think I'll be putting this deck in the top 10 anytime soon, but as I always say, please feel free to prove me wrong. Um, you know, I love seeing innovation and creativity in a diverse range of decks doing well. I just don't think Durant ends up beating people who know how to play against Durant. I lost to Durant the other night in an online event while playing Palkia. It was my first event playing Palkia. I misplayed a ton, so the Durant player won. Congrats to them, but I think if we ran that back, or maybe it was a best 2 out of 3, I could sharpen up my play in games 2 and 3, and I'm like, okay, now I know how my deck plays against your deck. Let's try this again. Or also, you know, everybody, just like I was, a lot of people are new to the decks they're playing, so they don't even know how to play them against typical strategies, let alone Durant. So Durant might just see some early success preying on people with unrefined lists, or that don't exactly know how to play their decks yet. Number 19, Dialga Vstar. I love Dialga Vstar, and I want it to be good, especially because I love the Diance's Princess Curtains that says, as long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to your benched basic Pokemon. So essentially it says your opponent can't boss his orders your benched basic Pokemon if Diance's in the active, which I think is very cool. The deck, you know, what it's trying to do is power up for a Star Chronos V-Star power attack, do 220, take a knockout, take an extra turn, knock something else out after that, and then just try to clean up the game from there. I think the strategy is sound and it is realistic. I'm just not sure how good it actually is against the metagame right now. And how long it takes to get it set up. Is it worth it? Do you give up too many prize cards on the early turns with the Diances and whatnot by the time you can go for your combo turn of Star Chronos plus Metal Blast and then close out the game? I think the deck is functional and solid. I'm just not sure if it will ever break into the top 10 decks like I kind of would like it to, just because I think it's a cool deck and it plays very differently. So we'll have to see on this one, but I think this list is quite fine. And lastly, Hassuing Lilligan Vstar. Now, I've said from the beginning, I think Hassuing Lilligan Vstar and the cards surrounding it are just very average, and that's fine. It's a functioning, solid deck. But what would plunge it higher on my list of decks is if decks like Hisuian Samurott and decks like Darkrai V-Star were popular because they are weak to Hisuian Lilligant V-Star. So I actually could not find any lists online that I thought were good for Hisuian Lilligant V-Star. And this is one that I've been messing around with, and it actually functions, it works, it does what I want it to. You can use the Jungle Rising attack with Zarude V to heal a damaged Lilligant V-Star and just try to loop that. The Kricketune gives extra health, and it's really, really good, actually. So this list isn't perfect. It's not amazing. You know, it's not tier S. This isn't an insane deck list or anything. I just didn't find anybody building the deck the way I think it should be built. So this is my list here. Feel free to use it. Feel free to fix it and make it better, because I haven't spent too much time with the deck yet. But this is the best I could make Lilligan V-Star so far. I think the Flapples are interesting, but those lists haven't been consistent from what I've seen, so I made a deck to actually work. And so those are my 11th through 20th decks for week 1 of Astral Radiance. Let me know down below what I got wrong, what you think is going to change. Anything about the video that you liked or disliked, I'll be happy to see it in the comments down below. And tune in next week when we get a little farther into the format for the top 10 and top 20 decks videos that I'll be doing every week for now, at least I plan to do, unless the format gets stale at some point, which I kind of don't think it will for quite a while at least. So thank you for watching this video today. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.